on. We are live, Pa. Welcome to the Be Oromo Pod. The
Thank you.
Be Oromo is live.
Thank you.
How
It's
are you,
great.
Pa?
I'm doing really well. We were out with the National Night Out tonight, talking to people, and we're working extremely hard, going all over Hennepin County. And this is a great way to end the day to visit with you and visit with the Oromo community.
For sure. I was out on a night out too with my kids earlier today. There was a
Fantastic.
trampoline, a fire truck showed up, ice cream. It was a blast for the kids.
Ice cream and the fire hose would have felt good tonight. It was hot out there.
It was hot. It was 99-degree heat wave everywhere. This heat
Exactly.
wave is like the election now. It's like the election that we're in right now.
It's heating up. It sure is. We're 1 week away. 1 week.
For sure. This is Dupi Oromo, so I mostly do the shows in English. I mean in Oromo, but I do have about 30% of the times I do it in English. So today you're gonna speak to mostly East African populations, particularly the Oromo, and also in general, I have followers from around the world.
Wonderful.
So you're gonna speak to many people from different backgrounds and different countries, cultures, and everything. So you are running for that kind of, should we say, political seat to a county attorney position too? It's a political because people got to go out and vote, right?
It's political because people go out and vote. Ace. It's also, though, really, really important that it should be nonpartisan. It shouldn't be about a Democrat or a Republican or, being an ally with this or that political group. Because the most important thing about this work is to do it in a way where everyone is treated equally and fairly. No one is above the law, and everyone's rights are protected. And the best way to do that is to, not wear these partisan political hats that we seem to all have to wear. It's done so much damage to our country, our ability to solve problems, and frankly, there's no place for it in a legal office.
Sure.
I can tell you, in where I am now in Anoka County, there's never a reason for us to talk about whether we're a Democrat or Republican or who we support. It's always just about what's the right thing to do, what's the fair thing to do, what does the Constitution tell us.
Right.
That's what's important.
For sure. As you can see on my show, it says, Oromo Affairs. To be Oromo means Oromo Affairs. It's where I keep it real with me, myself, and entirely the entire Oromo community and the rest of the world. And I spoke to many politicians who never left America. And it even gets me excited more to talk to you because I'm aware you went to Africa. Can you tell us how much you know about Africa? What is your favorite things about Africa? Anything you can tell me about Africa and your trip to Africa?
Well, thank you for that, Ace. I've not been to East Africa, but I have been to West Africa, and I visited Monrovia, Liberia, and Bong County, Liberia. And what happened is I became very close friends with a man in my church who was visiting here, and he became a minister, graduated from the seminary at Luther, Northwestern Seminary, and he had this vision of going back to Liberia and helping to educate and promote the well-being of young girls and young women.
Nice.
His concern was that there wasn't enough education and training, and so I went over with him to Monrovia. We actually, while I was there, set up a nonprofit organization. It did get put on hold with the pandemic, but I will say that we were treated with so much warmth and energy when we were there. I was given a name. I was given what I was told was a Liberian name. I was given the name Nagba.
Nagba.
Yeah, you know Nagba?
For sure. I don't, but you're going to win this election, and we're going to go to Oromo after this election.
We are. I was told that
and we're going to give you a beautiful Oromo name.
so I don't have an Oromo name, and I will want that. I'm told that Nagba means a tall man who will lead us. And
For sure.
I'm only a little over 6 feet. I don't, but at least they felt I was tall, and they wanted me
Right.
to. So I was very, very honored, and we
For
met so
sure.
many wonderful people there, and I certainly do want to go back sometime.
For sure. I hope that sometimes would be East Africa within East Africa, Oromia, so we can go together.
That would be great. I'd like
For
that.
sure. For sure. So the Oromo audiences, you guys know how it goes. The Oromo audiences in general. You guys can write your comments, ask Pa any question. If the questions are meaningful, I will definitely put them up, and Pa can can take on that question.
Mm-hmm.
And also, if you guys asking me questions about international relations, Pa is running for Hennepin County Attorney. He has no power to make international influences, but even if it's international question, if the question is meaningful, I'll put them up. So please do ask your questions with comments. I appreciate you all. Paul, let's get going to the interview. So how are you running for this position? Are you a Democrat? Are you a Republican? Are you independent? Any other
I,
party?
I'm running as a nonpartisan candidate, Ace,
Mhm.
what I mean by that is that I'm not wearing the label of any political party.
Mhm.
Uh, Last year in Minneapolis, we saw a really tragic failure of leadership in
Right,
Minneapolis, for example. The entire summer was fought over this charter amendment, but we made no progress. We didn't make any progress on violent crime. We didn't
right.
make any progress on police reform. We had dark money coming from all over the country on these two sides. We had
Mhm.
political opportunists, frankly, on both sides of the issue. And I think that's what really people are sick and tired of. If you looked at the paper this morning, last year we had this big debate about a public safety department for the city. The world was going to come to an end if we had this Department of Public Safety. Now, lo and behold, the mayor is proposing a Department of Public Safety, and everyone's scratching their head and say, "What did we go through all this craziness last year for?"
Right,
So, in Minneapolis, we've got these two factions that are going at each other, and that's kind of represented in this race. The Martha Holton Dimmock is really the mayor's candidate and the candidate of kind of what I would call the Minneapolis establishment, and
right,
and Mary is more running on the other side of that kind of civil war almost going on in Minneapolis, the political party. Then you have other candidates running as Democrats and Republicans. What I'm saying is, for us to do this work, we have to unify, not divide. And to unify means that we take all of those labels away. We take those tribal divisions away, and we all come together and work together. And that's really been a message people, I think,
for sure.
have welcomed out there. So that's really the core of the kind of leadership I want to bring.
For sure, for sure. I didn't even know you until I contacted you for the interview. How I came to contact you was I was just reading for like 3 days
Hmm.
your Facebook posts and the Twitter posts. I was just reading. I was just reading everything I read. All of them kind of like kept me positive. I didn't see anything like hypocrite in it. I
Hmm.
see a lot of hypocrite postings. And I also interviewed Todd Jude before. He's the first one I interviewed.
Hmm.
From the 7 candidates running for this position, you, Mary Moriarty, is that how you say her name, right?
I think it's Mary Moriarty. Yes.
Moriarty, yeah. And Todd Jude, you three convinced me. I think you three are the best candidates for that position. And from you three, the person who's most accessible is gonna win, I think. And I think you're very accessible. As soon as I contacted you guys responded back. And Todd Jude kind of did the same. And Mary too. We'll see if she'll respond back. But the other ones, Ryan Winkler and Martha, they're too established. I don't think they care about the community at all. I've seen them. I've seen their work for a long time, and especially Martha's, too established. I don't think she cares about the community. With you mentioned the tragedy of the previous 2 years that we went, particularly George Floyd tragedy, and the reason I care about the Hennepin County position is because of that and what we went through, and it affected all the way to the city of St. Paul. It was just protests and riots. People were losing their businesses, and if it, I got frustrated. We know these crimes, these killings, they happen in every part of society. But the Democratic Party, that county particularly, Hennepin County, elected Tim Walz, the governor, Attorney General Keith Ellison, almost the entire city council is a Democratic Party, one party, like one establishment, and it goes down to the mayor and even the police chief. Everybody's from like one established camp, one party, but they didn't even prosecute. So it kind of irritated me. Like, what's the point of voting for everybody that look exactly the same party, and they just sat there until the population burned the city down? So that kind of like frustrated me. And when I see a nonpartisan candidates like you, it excites me, and I want to, I want more community to meet you guys, hear you guys' voice, and you guys hear the community's voice too. So my question now is, what would a nonpartisan bring to the office?
Well, thanks for that.
Because we know the partisan ones from the back.
Yes.
Everyone getting like George happened. They just sat there.
So what the problem with Minneapolis being a one-party town is that there's so much focus on people protecting their power, that there's no ability to take a step back and look critically at what they're doing. Everything becomes about maintaining that power, and then there's no challenge to that power. So there's no debate. And the reason democracy is the best form of government is to have open and public disagreement and debate, and constructive debate. With Minneapolis, what we've got so often, Ace, is political theater.
Mm-hmm.
You've seen this, and your viewers have seen this, and
Right.
so nothing really happens, but there's all sorts of theater going on.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's no actual tangible results. One of the things that I've seen, unfortunately, too often in the Minneapolis DFL is that politics is supposed to serve the policies.
Mm-hmm.
In other words, we want to make the community safer. We want to make the police department more transparent. And this is how we do it. And then we figure out what's the message, what's the politics that gets that done.
Right.
Instead, we turn that on its head. It's always the politics that starts the conversation, and rather than this is what we need to do, and how do we bring people together to do it. And so Minneapolis is in desperate need, I think, of a nonpartisan movement of people.
For sure. For sure.
Not left, right, middle, whatever you want to call it, but problem solvers.
Mm-hmm.
We got to elect problem solvers, people that their goal is not to maintain their power. Their goal is not just to have press conferences, and they roll up their sleeves and solve problems of the
Right.
community. And that's what we've seemed to have lost the ability to do. So a nonpartisan candidate, what that offers to folks, is knowing that they're going to have that equal voice. Because that nonpartisan person's not going to owe their office to this party or that party or this
Right.
particular faction. That's the way, especially this office, needs to work.
For sure. For sure. Can you tell the audiences a little bit about yourself and what have you done to prepare yourself for this position?
Sure. Yes. Thank you, Ace. So the first thing I would say to your viewing audience, and I think this is true of all of us, is that our values really first and foremost come from our parents.
Mm-hmm.
Our family. That's what. And at the risk of being a bit personal, we recently lost my 100-year-old mother. So
Rest in peace.
she was an incredible woman, and from her, I really learned a sense of equality. You know, from the smallest, as a smallest child, it didn't matter whether you were the person that swept the floor or you were the
Mhm.
president of the United States. You're all the same.
Right.
You know, and for me, there's a faith component of that. We're all God's
Mhm.
children and we're all equal. But that was really something I got from my mom. You know, a sense of compassion for people, and empathy, and then from my father, frankly, my what he really taught me was to challenge political, conventional wisdom. And you know that we have way too many people that just kind of fall in line, you know,
Mhm.
with this is like a narrative, you know, and they're going to just,
Right.
no matter what the evidence is, they're going to stick to this. So I really feel like those are the values that taught me, in terms of what I've done in my experience. You know, I feel like I was taught that ethic of public service. So when uh, I went to law school, and then after being an attorney, I was a prosecutor for about 12 years. I ended up being on the Minneapolis City Council, representing Northeast Minneapolis. I served as the president of the City Council for one of my terms, and the budget chair. After 12 years, I left that office, and since then, I've been a prosecutor in Anoka County. And I've worked a lot on these, a lot of very high level drug trafficking cases,
Mhm.
and other violent crimes. And so I bring a combination of a community background, but also the professional ability and experience as a prosecutor. But then also those, you know, those kind of life values that kind of that form the foundation of who I am and how I do my work.
For sure. For sure. um, AJ Oromo is one of the items. This is that he's saying. I think he's joking for sure. He's joking, but there's a meaningful question inside that joke. He says, "I give you my vote in return. I need free attorney." But yeah, there is no such a thing as free attorney. But can you tell us what a Hennepin County attorney job duties would be?
Yes,
So,
absolutely.
so
So
I want the audiences to understand because people are
sure.
just used to legislators running for office.
Sure, and that's really important because the Hennepin County attorney does not make the law. The Hennepin County enforces the law.
Hmm.
So uh, that's really an important distinction. Um,
Sure.
the Hennepin County attorney is the essentially the chief executive officer of that office of 460 different personnel, attorneys, and other staff. So it's a very large office, and the office itself handles all of the more serious felony type of offenses in Hennepin County, handles the juvenile delinquency cases, the
Hmm.
child protection cases, represents the city, or sorry, represents the county in litigation, and is involved in protecting elderly from abuse. So it's a very, very broad position. And the way I look at it is that county attorney, that's the person who protects your safety. It's also the person that makes sure that your rights are protected. That no matter where you are, no matter who, no matter where you are, no matter, I'm sorry, no matter where you were born, no matter where you live, um, that you have a right to be safe and you have a right to be treated with equal respect under the law. That's really the foremost mission of that position.
For sure. For sure. One of the candidates, Martha Halton, she is applauding a city council. I believe he's a city council, Mike Granville. He's scapegoating all these crimes and he's scapegoating on the Somali communities. He's talking about he's going to go into their mosques and he's going to tell them, whatever he wants to tell them about keeping their kids. Why he wants to do that, it's troubling to me. If he says something like that about a Oromo community, I definitely will speak up. And the reason I have this question is
Mhm.
because the Oromo community and Somali community and every other community, we are the same.
So I
So
know you have a tape, Ace, that you're, I think, going to
yeah,
play. You
yeah,
know, just to give.
I'm gonna play that tape.
Good. and then we
And I
can
want
talk
your
about
take on it. And you also made a comment that that thing troubled you, and just explain that to me. What is your take on this comment?
I'd love to talk to you.
Martha, I have a question. Yes. If you wouldn't mind answering. I overheard your conversation with Rainbow.
Right.
And you said, I am so proud of what you said the other day.
I was thinking the same thing.
You know
And
what?
he said, thank you, thank you.
You know what he said? He said what a lot of people are thinking.
Whoa!
Blaming the Minneapolis crimes on Somali community is what a lot of people are thinking, according to Martha, and Dagashi applauds. Mike.
Yes, Ace, thank you for raising this. This is, there's so many ways in which this is troubling. Some of your viewers may be aware of the background of this. Councilmember Rainville is a relatively new council member. He made statements in the aftermath of incidents on July 4th that really scapegoated the Somali community. And it was very hurtful. And one of the basic signs of respect that everyone is entitled to is to be treated as an individual.
Right.
And so, just as there are, Somalis that might do things that are wrong, or Oromos, there are also white Lutherans like me that do things that are wrong.
Right.
But you don't hear people say, those white Lutheran parents have to talk to their white Lutheran kids, and get them straightened out, right? You're never going to hear that, are you?
Nope.
And so it was so transparently wrong because, in this country, we get treated and respected as individuals. And so to label, a specific immigrant group in that way was hurtful. Now, I will say this about Mr. Rainville is he did apologize.
Right.
And the thing that is troubling about this is that you may have seen it 4 or 5 different articles about Mike Rainville, about how he was being sanctioned, but we have this selective outrage. Right. And we do end up in circumstances where, and the truth is, Martha is one of the candidates that has huge backing among the power brokers in Minneapolis. Right. And that, frankly, does also apply to the media, the established media. So Mike apologizes for this, and then after Councilmember Rainville apologizes for this, that's when Martha Holton Dimick is heard saying that she is actually proud of him for making these comments. Right. And then takes it even further to say that he was just saying what everybody was thinking. You cannot have this position as Hennepin County Attorney if you don't have respect and you don't understand the immigrant communities in Hennepin County. Because how can the immigrant communities in Hennepin County believe you're going to treat them with respect and fairness if you are applauding this kind of a comment? And so it also shows this aspect of character, I would say, too, in that, Mike Rainville is a supporter of Martha's. Right. So, and this is not unique to Ms. Holton Dimick. This is a real problem in our politics right now. If my friend or ally does something, I'm going to excuse it. And if it's somebody that I'm not a supporter of or was on the other party, then I'm not going to. Well, I said early in this campaign, I said, if there are any statements of intolerance from anywhere, it doesn't matter if it's a political supporter or opponent, I will call it out. And it has to be troubling, I think, it must be troubling to any group of people if just because their friend or ally says something that's hurtful, they don't have the courage or the backbone to stand up to it. So I do think it was a serious problem, and I think it does also expose that there are certain powerful institutions that will protect certain candidates, certain favored candidates from scrutiny, because she has essentially escaped any scrutiny from this other than, the scrutiny that we're giving her now on your program.
Oh, yeah. Speaking of scrutiny, there is more. Here is one on MinPost. So according to the rating, Uh, it says that, back in 1999, Amy Klobuchar gave her the job to be the head prosecutor in Minneapolis, particularly to North Minneapolis. And she claims she brought down the record homicides from 45 to 25. And now we can do it again, is what she's trying to sell. Back in 1999, I I was a 9-year-old, so I don't know if
Mhm.
that's true. Is she really a champion like that? Because now I'm not a baby anymore, and I know Minneapolis, particularly North Minneapolis from Minnesota, is ranked number one in crimes. So can you help me understand what she's bragging about there?
Well, so my understanding is that Ms. Holton Dimick was one community prosecutor in an office of several hundred attorneys. So I do think it is quite an overstatement for her to suggest that somehow that she single-handedly solved the crime problem in North Minneapolis. Certainly that's not the case. The 1990s did show lower crime, thankfully, in much of the country, and we can debate what that was from. We had the Clinton cops, we had more law enforcement, we had a number of things going on. Uh, but for her to suggest that somehow it was her work that led to the reduction in crime, I think one of the things that's really important in this position is a sense of humility. And
Right,
one of the ways I judge candidates is and people in public office is how often we say the word I and how often we say the word we.
right,
I've always been somewhat uncomfortable using the word I real often, because I will tell you anything that I have done in public service, as a prosecutor, as an elected official, it's always been a we. Anything that I've done that's been worth doing, it's been done with the help of other people. It's been
sure.
done bringing people together. So I think I think voters should be very skeptical of folks that might come forward and say that, I stopped crime in Minneapolis, because no
For
one
sure,
person did that.
for sure. There's two good questions for you from the audiences and one meaningful comment. Dula Hassan says, for the first time in 24 years, voters in Hennepin County are voting for a new county attorney. Now, that's just in a statement.
Yes.
And Taha is asking you, what can you do differently than the last attorney, especially on police brutalities? This is his
Mm.
question.
So,
So the
a
last
great.
attorney is Mike Freeman. He's been chilling there for 24 years.
So a couple things. What I would say is I think the requirements of this position of county attorney have changed because of we have two crises going on right now, Ace. One is a crisis in violent crime and people not feeling safe.
Hmm.
And one of the I think it's a sacred trust that our country, that our community has, especially to the immigrant community, especially those who potentially have come from war-torn countries, that being come to this country seeking a safe place, um, that we keep people safe. And the second crisis, of course, is a crisis in confidence in the criminal justice system and in policing. And so this position now really requires working hand in hand with community in a way that maybe not in the past, because that trust has been broken.
Right.
So one of the things that I know from talking to the Somali community and the Liberian community and the East African community is there's this sense of tokenization and pandering to immigrant communities to get the vote, and then as soon as the election is over, it's forgotten. So that has to change.
I
On
see.
the issue of police misconduct and brutality, I think this is an issue that does distinguish me, because um, I support good police, but I will also tell you, good police is as they are as frustrated with bad police
Right.
as all the rest of us are.
Right.
And last year, I was involved in bringing a lawsuit against the Minneapolis Police Department for unlawfully hiding police discipline records in
Right.
Minneapolis. 90% of the cases where there's a proven misconduct, those are kept secret, and that's wrong. So I recently wrote an article with a public defender about the rights of defendants to
Mm-hmm.
information about if a police officer has not told the truth in the past, or if a police officer has used excessive force. That's a right. So if for example, someone in the Oromo community is being prosecuted for something, and an officer had used racial epithets or showed bias against Oromo, and there'd been a violation proved for that, that person, that Oromo defendant, has a right to that information to defend himself or herself,
Right.
and that's been denied. And these are these kind of really important constitutional protections that. So I will be really, tough on those who commit
Sure.
crimes and hurt people, but I will be very, very vigilant to make sure people's rights are protected. And some of that has to do with making sure that there's transparency with what's going on in the police department.
Sure.
And I know you have another video that you were going to show about, maybe I'm guessing where you're going, Ace, but about the fentanyl challenges that we face.
Yeah.
Um,
I just had a little internet being slow on me, but it picked back up. I have one more
Good.
question from the audience, and I think this question is really good. And then we'll move on to my second video that I have a question for you on.
Yes, good. Okay.
So this is from Omar, and Omar, I think, yeah, I know him. He works in downtown Minneapolis too. He says, what's your priorities regarding citizens' concern about the public safety, especially downtown Minneapolis? Also, what set you apart from the rest of the liberal candidates that we should know about?
Great question. So I'm the only candidate that has an actual specific plan to address the violent crime. It's a 10-point plan. Everyone can go on the website, which is Ostrow for Hennepin.com. The first item on that list is something no one else is willing to talk about.
Right.
Maybe Mr. Jude, but certainly nobody other than him. And that is to end what I would call catch and release.
Right.
What we have now, and quite often in Hennepin County, is we have defendants that have committed 5, 6, or 7 felonies, and they keep getting released from jail to commit new offenses. We have individuals that are on probation or parole that are violating the probation and parole, and they still are allowed to continually be released. And this is very, very frightening to the community, frustrating to the community, frankly, frustrating to law enforcement when they apprehend a serious offender and they're released right away. One of the things that really distinguishes me as a nonpartisan candidate is that I'm willing to disagree with the Democrats. So, for example, Ryan Winkler, as the House Majority Leader, he did not support a bill to make penalties more serious for carjacking. There's 39 states in the country that have carjacking laws. We don't even have one in Minnesota, even though we had 600 carjackings in Minneapolis alone last year.
Right.
And the bill passed in the Senate by a huge margin, and House Majority Winkler wouldn't even allow a vote on it. I know we're going to talk about fentanyl in a moment. And again, I generally vote Democrat, but as a county attorney, I'm not going to wear that party hat. And the DFL House refused to allow a vote on this fentanyl bill, which was a very basic common sense bill. And we'll get into that a little bit more because I know you have the video. So
For
that
sure.
distinguishes me from the other, if you want to call liberal, I will tell you what, you can, I'm, as far as as being a candidate who's going to challenge institutions, challenge the established hierarchy. That's going to be me. I'm not going to just listen to what all the power brokers say. I'm going to listen to what the community says. I don't, whether that's liberal or middle or conservative, that's of no consequence to me. I'm going to be listening to all the voices in the community. So,
for sure,
that
Oromos are a strongly independent and strongly conservative. We also certainly do share a lot of liberal values.
yes,
We're just not a sleepy people anymore because Ethiopia prosecuted us like for 150 years. We fought Ethiopia, so we're not asleep. I think that's why Omar is just making sure, because Hennepin County is dominated by liberals. I think that's why he's asking his question like that. But this live video goes on 4 different channels. So I have one more really good question from Tiger Worku that I want to put it up, and I also put it the link here on it here from your account about the 10-point plans to address violent crimes in Hennepin County. So,
great.
So for more details, please do visit that link and check out the 10-point plans. And Tiger Worku, he's the one who asked Martha about that scapegoating the crime on the Somali community. He's saying, "Hey, Pa, can you talk a little about your experience as the president of the Minneapolis City Council and how it'll translate to the Hennepin County Attorney's Office?"
Okay, well, thank you, Tiger, and thank you, Ace. That role was so important because my whole job as council president was to bring out the best of every council member, bring out the best ideas from all the city council members in their communities. So we had the best possible plans to make the community better. That's the way I looked at my job. I didn't look at my job as, we've got to get to 7 votes, or my side has to win and your side has to lose. The kind of leadership that I brought to that position was, how do we put these 13 minds together, and how do we get the best result for the community? That's the kind of leadership that I want to provide. I was known in that role as somebody that was fair, that was balanced, that allowed everybody to have input. And that's the kind of leader I want to be in the county attorney's office. Also as council president and being just on the council for 12 years, and I'm sure know this, Ace, I was at neighborhood meetings 3, 4, 5 nights a week for 12 years. Sure. So frankly, that's something the other candidates haven't done. Someone who's a legislator like Mr. Winkler, he might have a town hall meeting once or twice a year. He has lobbyists go in and out of his rooms all the time, right? All the donors and they're the ones there, but that's not the way city council works. City council works, you're going to people's block club meetings, you're going to their neighborhood meetings, right. You're dealing with people in a real personal way. That's an experience that frankly none of the other candidates has. You don't get that as a judge, frankly. You don't get it necessarily even as a prosecutor. So that combination of having that experience as a community leader, but then also the expertise as a prosecutor, I do think that really sets me apart. No one else has that, that experience. And it has really grounded me in community and feeling that, and that background, I think, is going to really give confidence to everyone in Hennepin County that they have a voice.
For sure. I appreciate you for that answer. I wanted to play a video from your campaign website that I took. And in this video, this is one of your top issues, I believe. And it's not just you. I think the whole nation is a top issue. And I think the whole world is a top issue, not this issue. Let's watch this video. It's a 1-minute video.
I need to be blunt. Fentanyl is killing our neighbors here in Hennepin County by the hundreds each year. And Ryan Winkler, the House Majority Leader, just blew a chance to fight back. A bill that would have put fentanyl sales on the same felony level as heroin had overwhelming support from both parties at the Capitol. But still, Winkler did not get it to the governor's desk. The law just has not kept up with the potency of fentanyl. As a prosecutor, I have been warning about this growing problem for years. Know that this is coming. So let's get out ahead of it. And I've been trying to get Winkler's attention on the issue. I do have to ask Majority Leader Winkler, please make sure there's a hearing on that fentanyl bill. I promise, as your county attorney, I will tackle the fentanyl problem head on. And I will lock up the people who have victimized so many of our neighbors. I'm Paul Ostrow, and I approve this message.
Pat, can you describe the fentanyl issues, and also can you tell us why it hasn't been addressed yet? And I heard about this issue back when I was in high school. I heard about it. They came to our high school and they gave us that, you know, how a speaker comes to the high school, gives you a speech.
Yes.
I heard it since then. I heard it in college. I heard it after college. And I hear it with every candidate, but nothing ever gets done about that. And a lot of youth are out here getting hurt with drugs.
So you're so right, Ace, and you know this, but more people were killed by fentanyl last year in the United States, and more people were killed by fentanyl in Hennepin County last year than by gun violence. And gun violence, of course, is a tragedy. And I think this is frankly a moral failing of our leaders not to have addressed this. The video, of course, shows that back in 2017 that I urged something be done then, because as the lead prosecutor for the Drug and Violent Crime Task Force in Anoka County, I could already start to see that this was coming. And frankly, no one listened back then. And finally, in 2021, the state Senate anyway acted 62-5. It wasn't even close.
Right.
And, you know, people may ask, why are you a nonpartisan candidate? You know, one thing I would ask people, frankly, is, you know, directed, I suppose, at Mr. Winkler, right? Why would we want to bring the dysfunction of the legislature to the Hennepin County Attorney's Office? I mean, the legislature has failed us. What happens at the legislature is that because the Republicans, quote unquote, wanted this fentanyl bill to pass, the merits of it didn't matter. The Democrats were going to be against it. You know, so people aren't thinking about what's right for the people they represent. They're simply saying, well, the Republicans get a piece here, the Democrats get, and if you don't give us something, we won't give you that. That's why fentanyl didn't pass. So fentanyl is getting worse and worse. I have prosecuted a number of cases for third-degree homicide, which is when you intentionally sell somebody fentanyl, you know, you're selling poison for a profit.
Right.
Under our law, if you intentionally sell somebody fentanyl and they die from that, that's called third-degree murder, as it should be. Hennepin County has not been prosecuting that. I think we need to prosecute that. We need to fix these laws so that fentanyl has the same, it should have actually more, but the same penalties as heroin. We've actually made Minnesota a great place to sell fentanyl. And part of the reason I know this is from the working with my investigators. You literally they will tell you stories of fentanyl dealers who will even talk in Facebook posts and in conversations how good it is to be in Minnesota because the penalties are so lax here.
Right.
Why would anyone even sell heroin these days or other drugs when they can make so much money selling fentanyl and the penalties are so low?
Right.
So what I would do is the message would be clear that we would aggressively prosecute people for selling fentanyl. We would aggressively prosecute when people die as a result of that. I would lead a very aggressive public campaign on this issue. I think in that position you can do that. and I think we can make a huge impact. But in many of the conversations we've had, many conversations with the mosques and the Somali community, and many others. A lot of parents are just terrified they're going to lose their
Right.
kid, and as I said, I think it's a moral failing as a society that we've been. That we haven't responded with the moral necessity that this issue calls for.
What's the law on fentanyl right now? Is it the law is too weak, or the Hennepin County attorney is too weak to prosecute the criminals? Which one is it right now?
It's both. I think and you could get into a discussion of investigation resources and all of that, and obviously the police department's numbers are down, but I do know that the Star Tribune is working on a story right now about people that have lost loved ones, and where they have a lot of evidence and the case is not being pursued. So in Anoka County, we have a protocol anytime there's an overdose death, where cell phones are obtained. There's an investigation done to see if we can track down who it is that gave that lethal dose. I don't think that same thing's being done in Hennepin County. That needs to be done. That's one part of the issue. But the law being weak is such that, so fentanyl's 50 times more powerful than heroin. And yet you need to have 10 grams of fentanyl, and you have to have an intent to sell it that has to be proved in order for that to be a case that you might go to prison for. 10 grams of fentanyl can kill probably about 500 people. That's how deadly it is.
Right.
So that's where the law is just simply, way out of date.
Right.
And needs to be fixed. And one of the things I offer as a nonpartisan candidate, Ace, is I will have no hesitance to go to the DFL House Committee and call them out on this. Just as I'll have no hesitance to go to the Republican Senate and call the Republicans out on this. I'm not going to be limited by some party allegiance. The other candidates are going to be, and it's interesting, the candidates running as Democrats, none of them are raising these issues because they don't want to criticize their own political party.
Right. It's sad, man. It's a sad issue. It's a very, very sad issue. I heard it for so many years. New immigrants, usually it hits us within like 10 years after the community gets established, because after 10 years, people assimilate to America, they become the American culture, and then the kids, they cannot defend themselves off of this thing. If it's on the street, it's going to make it to the kids.
And what's really sad to me is there's a marginalization of the victims.
Right.
Because people say, well, they did it to themselves.
Right.
No, these are predators that are selling these drugs to these kids, and that to me is really, that part of it is sad to me. And this is our youth. The potential of so many people. I can't tell you how many people have responded to our Facebook page and people that we've talked to out in community when this issue comes up. I would bet at least half the people we talk to, they at least know of somebody that died from fentanyl. The reach is that broad. For sure. In
immigrant community, especially new immigrants, because we are so new here, what we left, either if we're from Asia, what we left in Asia, if we from Africa, what we left in Africa kind of carries over. So when we come to America, international politics constantly becomes, the top issues, and we forget about local politics. How's this county attorney election, like the county attorney position? How does it matter? Like this race, how does it matter to the immigrant communities?
Boy, this matters so much.
Is it? because
It's
we
like,
carry too much international politics and we forget our stuff locally.
yeah, I'm so glad you're asking that question. I will tell you, Ace, I can't win this election without the support of the immigrant communities, because a lot of the push for politically independent thinking is coming from the immigrant communities, because the fact is that, frankly, the Republican Party just has never cared about immigrant communities, but the Democratic Party has pandered to and has tokenized immigrant communities, but never really authentically represented immigrant communities, in my opinion, the way that they deserve to be represented. So, I talked a little bit about the political tribes. With those political tribes comes money and endorsements and a lot of those kinds of things. So that's kind of what this campaign is up against. But what this campaign does have is tremendous support, I believe, in the immigrant communities, because they know that my concern for immigrant communities is authentic. They know that I've already shown it in the past that I will work with immigrant communities. The immigrant communities will be partners in the work that I do. So why is that important? I guess I'd be quite simple and say there's nothing more important to your well-being than your public safety.
Right.
And there's nothing more important that your government owes to you than your equal treatment under the law.
Right.
And so that's what's at stake for the immigrant community in this election. If you elect someone who, frankly, like Martha Holden Dimmick, does not seem to understand or respect immigrant communities, that has a serious consequence. So I'm really urging everyone watching this program to get out and vote on August 9th. This literally is an election where the immigrant communities can make such a strong statement that they're no longer going to accept representation that's not authentic, that they're not going to be limited to these two parties, but that they're actually looking for someone who is going to be nonpartisan and live up to the values that you're talking about here. With 7 candidates,
Right.
it's going to take maybe 45 or 50,000 votes for someone to get through the primary election. A huge part of our coalition will be the immigrant communities, and I can confidently say if we are able to get through this primary, one of the major reasons we'll do that is with the support of the Oromo community, the Liberian community, the Somali community, because they know that we are going to partner with you.
For sure. Appreciate you for that. That question is a really good question, why this race matters to the immigrant communities. I'll give you one example. It's a very, very sad case, and it was just closed case with no justice. November 2015. It was told it was Somali gangs. They shot 3 Oromo youth, college kids, like freshmen and college kids. 2 of them were college kids, and 2 of them were a headshot, so they died right on the scene. But the third one was in coma for 30 days, and he woke up after 30 days. The county didn't investigate it. Whatever investigation they said, the guy who woke up after 30 days, he would have to go to court and name out the people that killed him. And he said, I don't have enough protection. I cannot name out the gangs that shot us. And we were not able to get any support. Well, not any support, but they were basically telling me to go fundraise money and bring money. We will do private investigator. We'll pressure it more. This is basically Minneapolis police investigators telling me this, and the father who lost the kid. They told both of us that, and we couldn't really go fundraise money because for every murder, the community have to fundraise money after that. If we fundraise money for that. And to this day, those youth have not gotten any justice. Nobody got prosecuted.
Mm.
It just new. It felt like new immigrants. Who cares about you guys? That's how we felt.
So are you saying you were told that they would not investigate, and you had to hire your own investigator?
Basically, for a private investigator to push it farther than this, they told us, like, since the kid woke up, he can go to court and testify who shot him and who killed his two friends and put him in coma for 30 days. But the kid said, I'm afraid.
Sure.
He said he's not gonna say it. But if the DA goes aggressively on that case, the kid will not be afraid. The kid got no support whatsoever. To the point, all two parents, those three kids have two parents, two different families, three kids.
Sure.
And the families end up moving out of Minneapolis. The gangs were threatening the family too, to not go to court, to not go seek justice. And I was just so disappointed that gangs can actually make the families and everybody feel like that. And the county attorney didn't step in. The police department didn't step in.
So it does
And
sound
to this
like
day, no justice.
it sounds like the victim did not feel that the office supported.
No, there was zero
that
support.
maybe with sufficient support and services that he would have been more likely to have confronted the people and so one of the parts of our plan is to really empower victims of crime.
Right.
And I do think especially immigrant communities, especially newer immigrant communities, we have to be very aware that our criminal justice system can be very foreign, especially to immigrant communities, and very intimidating. And so, we have to go the extra mile, especially when we have victims that are immigrants, to make sure that they have those services they need. I think we need to do much, much more on that.
Right, for sure. Like, it was so difficult to access the Hennepin County Sheriff's Attorney's Office for any of these assistances. The car they were killed in was one of the victim's father. He was driving his dad's car that day, that kid. And the kid is only freshman in college.
So
the father wasn't even able to get the car back. A brand new car with a payment on it. Wow. And bankrupted that whole family like that.
I had the opportunity to meet the district attorney from Kansas City, who I thought had a very thoughtful approach. He said that he would meet with the family of every homicide victim, that as the county attorney, and I believe I would want to do the same. It doesn't mean that you can charge the case,
right?
But it does mean that when somebody has had that ultimate loss, that the person that's in charge of that office shows their support, shows that they're going to do everything possible, shows that they're going to be treated with respect, and that they understand the magnitude of that loss. So that is something I would really want to look at because setting that kind of tone is really important.
Right. And even the police, they figured out there were two killers. One of them was assisting the other one, the shooter. Basically, he goes on the other side of the car and he pulls the door in where he shoots all three of them. Even the police, they showed us the picture. He was like, one of the kids is this one. We don't know who the second kid is.
Yeah.
But knowingly, if they knew that much, we were just shocked why they didn't prosecute them.
So Ace, I know you were kind enough to ask, again, why is this important?
Right.
And I know we're probably getting close to the end of our conversation, and I really appreciate the chance to talk to you. But I really want to emphasize to everybody, we're a week away now.
Right.
It's August 9th, Tuesday. It's an incredibly important election. So
Right.
I'm really asking folks for their support. We can make such a big difference.
For
You know,
sure.
it's August 9th,
Right.
and the polls are open from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. Your viewers really can make the difference in this race. I know
For
they can.
sure. For sure. Many will see it when they wake up in the morning.
Exactly.
That's how it goes. And you keep doing what you're doing, man. You're doing a lot of good campaigns. You're traveling throughout the Twin Cities, particularly within the Hennepin County, doing your campaigns. Keep doing that campaign. Do you have any particular memories you want to share from your campaign, talking to East African community? Any particular moments, anything you want to share for your last statements?
Well, I guess what I would say is that we've been treated with tremendous warmth, certainly by the East African community, but really throughout Hennepin County also. Campaigning is kind of a big leap of faith.
Right.
We've been to parades, we've been to art fairs, we've been to festivals,
Right.
we've been to fish fries, we've been to every possible kind of thing. And I can say the vast majority of folks have been very kind. If you smile enough,
Mm-hmm.
most people will
We'll
let you
vote for
chat
you.
with them for a few. Well, hopefully vote for me too. But
Yeah.
but people the experience of campaigning has just reinforced, Ace, what I already believed was true,
For sure.
which is that politics can and must change. That people are so encouraged
For
to
sure.
hear this message of unity and nonpartisanship
For
and
sure.
finding common ground.
For sure.
That's been very inspiring. But we have a video on our website. Folks can watch it that shows me going everywhere, all over the county,
For
talking to
sure.
people. We kind of figure we're going for one vote at a time.
For
Is
sure.
kind of what we're doing.
For sure.
Old-fashioned campaigning. And then the other thing that we've said is the other candidates they're just relying on their political hat.
Right.
They want people to vote for them because they're a Democrat or they're a Republican or they're part of the Minneapolis
Right.
establishment or they're part of this or that, organization or group.
For sure.
Because of that, they, in our view, really haven't come up with any real solid proposals. And what we've said is because we're not running as a faction or a party, we're not asking people to vote for us just because we're wearing a label.
Right.
We've had to come up with plans.
For sure.
We've had to come up with proposals, and people will see that on our website because people are entitled to that. So we're running a campaign of substance. But there have been so many, moments, in the dunk tank.
Sure.
We were there for the Somalia celebration, and the kids, got me into the dunk tank. That was one moment. There've been a lot of, I can say for the most part, it's also been a lot of fun.
For sure.
Just to get out there and it can be exhausting. I admit
Right.
that, but if you can't handle the heat, get out of the kitchen, right?
That's right. But I'm sure you can handle it.
Absolutely. Yeah.
You're calm and cool and collect, so you'll handle it.
Well, thank you, Ace, and thank you to your audience. Really appreciate the chance to talk to you, and thank you for the work you do and having the program and getting the word out.
For sure, I appreciate you. This is Dupi Oromo. This is what we do. We stay real with ourselves and the world. I appreciate you for coming.
Absolutely.
And I hope you win on the 8th, so
Thank
we can
you.
talk again after the 8th.
Thank you. I'll come back on, and then we'll talk about how we win in November.
For sure. I appreciate you, Pa. Salute the audiences. I appreciate you all for tuning into the show. Please do share. So in the morning, we have more East Africans get connected with Pa, and we make Minneapolis and the Hennepin County more safer. I appreciate you. Have a wonderful evening. If you are watching me from Africa, have a good afternoon. Peace.
Thank you. Peace, everybody.